Let me ask you a question. Right now, as you're watching this, is there something you know you should be doing, but you're not? Maybe it's a work project. Maybe it's that tax form glaring at you from the desk. Maybe it's just a pile of dishes. You know it's there. You feel the low, nagging dread of it in your stomach. But instead, you're scrolling. You're making another cup of tea. You're suddenly very interested in reorganizing your bookshelf by color. Why? Why do we do this to ourselves? We're smart. We know the consequences. We know we'll feel terrible later. Yet, we still choose the temporary comfort of not doing the thing. It feels like a personal flaw, a moral failing. We call ourselves lazy. But what if I told you procrastination isn't about laziness at all? What if it's not a character flaw, but a psychological protection mechanism? And what if the key to understanding it, and stopping it, was unwittingly discovered over 2,300 years ago by one of history's most famous philosophers in a moment of pure, personal crisis? This is a story about a man running from a monster, only to find the monster was inside him all along. It's the story of Socrates, a giant of philosophy, and the shocking, simple truth he uncovered about why we sabotage our own futures. And by the end, you'll never look at your to-do list the same way again. Our story begins in ancient Athens, around 400 BC. Imagine a bustling, vibrant city-state, the birthplace of democracy, art, and ideas. And in its streets, there was a man who was a permanent, puzzling fixture. His name was Socrates. He wasn't a king or a general. He was, by all accounts, kind of a weirdo. He was famously ugly, with a snub nose and bulging eyes. He walked barefoot, wore the same shabby cloak year-round, and had absolutely no interest in money or status. His full-time job? Loitering. He would linger in the marketplace, the gymnasium, the public squares, and stop people, politicians, poets, soldiers, craftsmen, to ask them seemingly simple questions. What is justice? What is courage? What makes a good life? He wasn't looking for a lecture. He wanted a conversation. He'd take their confident answer and, with gentle, relentless logic, poke holes in it. He'd reveal the contradictions they'd never seen. He compared himself to a gadfly, a pesky insect that buzzes around a sleepy horse, stinging it into action. Athens was the horse, grown fat and complacent, and Socrates was the sting, trying to wake it up to the pursuit of true wisdom. People were fascinated, annoyed, and utterly intrigued. A group of young men, including the famous Plato, followed him everywhere, recording these conversations. They saw him as the wisest man alive. But to the powerful elite, he was a nuisance, a corrupter of youth, a threat to the established order. Socrates lived a life of profound principle. He believed the unexamined life was not worth living. He believed that true evil came from ignorance, and that if people only knew what was truly good, they would automatically do it. It was a beautiful, rational idea. But it was about to be tested in the most brutal way imaginable. The turning point. The Athenian authorities finally had enough. They arrested Socrates and put him on trial for impiety and corrupting the youth. The trial was a sham. He was found guilty and sentenced to death by drinking a cup of poisonous hemlock. Now, here is where the story takes a crucial turn. Socrates was placed in a prison cell to await his execution. But he wasn't there alone. His wealthy friend, Crito, bribed the guards and came to him with a plan. Socrates, Crito pleaded, his voice a frantic whisper. It's all arranged. The guards are paid. Your friends have money. We can get you out of Athens tonight. You can go to Thessaly, live in exile, be safe. You have a wife and children. You don't deserve this death. Think about this offer. It was a golden ticket. Freedom. Life. A chance to see his family again, to continue his teachings elsewhere. All he had to do was walk out the door. And Socrates refused. He calmly, rationally, told Crito he would stay and accept his execution. His students were horrified. It made no sense. This was the man who preached about living well, about examining life. Now he was choosing to die for a corrupt verdict. Was it pride? Stubbornness? A death wish? This is the shocking moment. The great philosopher, faced with the ultimate deadline, his own death, seemed to be committing the ultimate act of procrastination. He was postponing his own life. He was choosing inaction over the obvious, logical action of escape. Why? To explain, Socrates didn't give an emotional speech. He did what he always did. He started a dialogue. He personified the very laws of Athens and had them argue with him. If you run away, Socrates, the imaginary laws said, what are you really doing? You have lived here for 70 years. You benefited from our protection, our courts, our society. By fleeing, you are breaking the social contract you willingly enjoyed. You would be destroying the very laws you claim to respect. You would be acting out of fear of death. Not out of principle. You would be choosing a longer life over a good life. And there it was. The core of the paradox. Socrates wasn't procrastinating on living. He was prioritizing his integrity. The monster he was running from wasn't death. The monster was becoming a person he despised, a hypocrite, a coward, someone who valued mere survival over his core beliefs. The psychological twist. Let's bring this home. Socrates' prison cell is a metaphor for your own mind when you procrastinate. Think about your task, that big presentation. Your brain doesn't see it as a set of slides to be made. It sees it as a potential monster, the monster of failure, of judgment, of overwhelm, of not being good enough. Starting the task means walking right up to that monster's cage. So what does your brain do? It does a brilliant, terrible thing. It protects you. It says, whoa. Don't open that cage. Let's go do this other, safer thing instead. The distraction, the scroll, the snack, the cleaning, isn't laziness. It's a strategic retreat. It's your brain choosing the minor, certain pain of guilt, I should be working, over the major, uncertain pain of confronting the monster, what if I try and I'm humiliated? Socrates' genius was reframing the monster. The Athenian court said the monster was death. But Socrates realized the real, terrifying monster was living a life that betrayed his soul. The pain of drinking hemlock was finite. The pain of living as a coward, knowing he had abandoned his own philosophy, would have been eternal for him. When you procrastinate, you are making the same calculation, but with a critical error. You think. Short-term pain, of the task high, scary, uncertain. Long-term pain, of not doing it vague, future, easy to ignore. So you choose the vague future pain. You escape to TikTok, just as Crito wanted Socrates to escape to Thessaly. But Socrates flipped the script. He made the long-term pain viscerally real and awful. He saw living as a hypocrite as a fate worse than death. Suddenly, the short-term pain, drinking the poison, became the lesser evil. It became manageable. So how do we use this ancient insight to stop procrastinating today? You don't need to face a death sentence. You just need a Socratic dialogue with yourself. Step 1, personify the laws. When you feel the urge to procrastinate, stop. Don't fight it. Get curious. Ask yourself the simple, annoying, gadfly-like question, what am I really afraid of here? Is it that you'll do a bad job? That someone will criticize you? That it will be too hard? Name the monster in the cage. Step 2, examine the escape plan. Crito's escape to Thessaly was clean, quick, and cowardly. Your escape to Instagram is the same. Now ask, if I choose this escape, what am I really choosing? You're not just choosing 30 minutes of memes. You're choosing future you waking up panicked at 3 a.m. You're choosing the self-loathing of a missed deadline. You're choosing to be the person who lets themselves down. Make the long-term consequence real. Step 3. Reframe the monster. This is the key. Socrates didn't see hemlock, he saw integrity. Your task is not a monster of failure. That report is not a judgment of my worth. It is an opportunity to communicate my ideas. That workout is not grueling pain. It is a gift of strength to my future self. That difficult conversation is not a potential conflict. It is an act of respect for the relationship. Reframe the task from a threat to a value. Connect it to who you want to be. Is the person you want to be someone who hides, or someone who faces things? Step 4. Take the Socratic sip. The final, shocking act of Socrates was his calmness. He drank the hemlock, surrounded by his weeping friends, and died discussing philosophy. He leaned into the short-term discomfort because he had made peace with its purpose. Your version is simple: open the document. Put on your shoes. Send the email. Do the very first, tiny, visible action. Not to finish the task, but simply to prove to yourself that the monster's cage can be opened, and you can stand in front of it. The anxiety almost always peaks before we start. The act of starting dismantles the monster's power. Socrates' story ends with his death, but his point was about life. The unexamined life, he said, is not worth living. We can say the same for procrastination. The unexamined task is impossible to start. When you procrastinate, you are not lazy. You are a human being trying to protect yourself from emotional pain. You are Crito, begging for an escape. But you also have a Socrates inside you, the voice that knows your deeper values, that knows a life of constant escape is a prison of its own. The next time you feel that familiar pull to delay, don't hate yourself. Thank your brain for trying to protect you. Then, gently, ask it the first Socratic question: what are we really running from? By examining the fear, you transform the task from an existential threat into a manageable action. You trade the infinite pain of self-betrayal for the finite discomfort of effort. You move from being the prisoner in the cell, begging for an escape, to being the philosopher who chooses the harder, better path, not out of masochism, but out of profound self-respect. You have the power to drink the hemlock of starting. And on the other side of that sip isn't death. It's freedom. If this reframe of an ancient story helped you understand your own mind a little better, if you think it could help someone else break free from the procrastination prison, then please share this video. Let's spread the idea that our biggest battles are often with the monsters we've locked inside our own heads. Subscribe for more stories where we use philosophy, not as a dusty old subject, but as a practical toolkit for modern life. Like this video if you're ready to stop running and start your own Socratic dialogue today. What's the one thing you've been putting off? Name it in the comments below. Just naming it is the first, brave step. Let's support each other in facing our monsters. Thanks for watching. Now go and examine your task. Your future self is waiting.